Node.js as a runtime is absolutely trash, and so are a lot of other languages that you like and you love. And this is not a clickbait, this is very serious coming from me because I have spent a lot of my life writing Node.js and TypeScript code. And when I say something like this, let's put on our curiosity hats for a while and watch this video till the end to understand why I am saying this. Now, Node.js as a programming language or as a runtime, a lot of people get offended if I say Node.js is a programming language. I know Node.js is a runtime and JavaScript is the language and V8 is the engine, but I will use that interchangeably, so don't mind me. But Node.js as a runtime is great, right? It allows you to write JavaScript, which is what all of us have learned, writing client-side applications, which can just run on server. But now let me show you what happens if, let's say, you have an endpoint, something like, create user, right? I'm giving you a real scenario which has happened in production with me. So I'm telling you this with experience. This actually happens, right? Let's say you get the password that the user has passed from request.body.password for whatever reason, right? And after this, you run a library known as ZXCVBN. If you have not used this library, this is basically a library inside NPM that allows you to check the password strength, right? How strong a password is in the first place. Now, a funny thing with this library is that this can basically halt your server if you pass in a long enough string in this library, right? So if this password by any chance is a very long password, if you don't have any validation or something before you pass this inside ZXCVBN, what you're effectively doing is you're crashing your server. It would not serve any more requests and you have effectively taken down, your backend is down, right? And doesn't matter how many instances or how many servers you have, because imagine like I enter a password that is basically stopping, like this is so CPU bound inside Node.js, let's say that it stops the execution for 10 seconds because it's spending all of the time computing the password strength, right? It doesn't matter how many Node.js services I have. If I have an attack going on, if I have the server 1, server 2, server 3, let's say if I have 50 servers as well, and they are all load balanced via round robin or whatever algorithm, you can effectively start bricking every single server just because you missed out on slicing this to maybe something like this or maybe something like 30, right? And I tell this with a lot of shame that this has actually happened in one of our production backends, and that is how I discovered that ZXCVBN is actually a very CPU intensive function on longer payloads. And that is where it struck me that, this is super bad. I need to see something in the wild, in the ecosystem who has actually solved for this, because this sounds very bad and very much something which a lot of other people would have also faced, right? And that is where I came across this language called Elixir. Now, the language itself is not really important, as I understood, as I started to learn about it. What I figured out, what was important is the underlying virtual machine that powers it, which is Beam, right? It's the runtime. Just like Node.js is the runtime for JavaScript, Elixir is sort of like JavaScript. Think of Elixir as JavaScript, syntax-wise, and think of Beam as Node.js. Or rather, like I would say like this, I'll probably give it like Beam is much more closer to V8, not Node.js, and I'll probably put Elixir and Node.js and JavaScript together over here, right? Because this is the machine that actually also executes the code, similar to like how V8 does. Then of course, if you go a little bit back, for example, just to give you an example of Express as a framework, in Elixir's case, that will be Phoenix. So let me now explain you the core idea behind Beam and why I'm a little bit excited about it. You understand the problem, right? You understand the problem. This server could be handling 500 requests per second for all we know, or 1000 requests per second for all we know. But the moment this call hits, it will basically halt everything, because the way Node.js works, or this process works, is that it executes, Node.js keeps on executing the code sequentially until and unless it gets an await, or there is something that needs to be put in callback queue. And once it does, it context switches it, right? So Node.js does not preemptively switch the context. Your code has to cooperate with the code itself, with each other, the other parts of code, in order to give them access, right? So it's possible for your code, which is not well written, to keep access with itself forever, which is like the good example of this is like while true. If you write while true anywhere in your code execution part where Node.js is executing, you have basically bricked the server, right? Look at this code I created in Node.js. I'm gonna run it now with TSX, and you will see it says starting periodic work. You should see ticks every second, tick 1, 2, 3, and then there's a while true loop which we trigger, which basically blocks Node.js, right? And you get this no more ticks will print, node is frozen. And this is also like before the while true, right? And now you're not seeing any other console logs, because Node is actually waiting for this to be released, to be done, before it resumes the work that it was already doing over here, right? You can imagine this, you can take this and you can imagine this, apply this in a concept of API calls done by users. If you have 1,000, 10,000 requests, 100,000 requests per second going on, I'm not saying that you are inherently writing bad code, but bad code happens, right? Imagine that there is some malicious user or some use case where it's possible to block the CPU even for a few seconds. And if an attacker is able to discover that vulnerability, they can basically perform sort of an attack, which is like a denial of service, which can bring down your system very easily. On the other hand, if I have the same program inside Elixir, and if I run this, you will see that I triggered this while loop in about 4 seconds. But Beam doesn't care, right? Ticks will keep printing, Elixir is fine because Elixir is not blocking this, right? So it's not like we are creating OS level thread or process or anything. This is like all managed inside Elixir itself. And speaking about logs and errors in general, when you are building such applications, you want to see these logs and you want to see these errors in order to debug what's going wrong. Whether you're using Node.js or Elixir, you need a system that tracks logs, errors, what's going on in your system so that you can debug properly. And this is where today's sponsor Posthoc comes into play, which have one of their services as logging and error tracking. Now, this is a service that retains full backend context with events, requests, and state changes in a single place so that it's easier for you to debug which user or process is actually eating your CPU. These logs can be queried. If you're using a third-party external system that uses OpenTelemetry, you can bring them inside Posthoc as well. And you can tie the context of the logs together as well. If you have Posthoc on browser as well as on backend, you can combine the logs on which API, for example, from the front end actually triggered what on the backend that caused that CPU hike or memory leak or whatever. And of course, if you don't know what's going on, you can always ask Posthoc's AI to figure out what is actually that your logs are saying and what needs to be fixed. You can see this is how their logs work, where you can go into details of any single log. You can check the raw logs, which are coming from the backend server, and you can figure out based on what level of logs you want, including the services which are generating these logs. And of course, you can use AI to figure out what's going on. For browser-side logging, you can also have Posthoc actually record screen of the user, what they were doing at the time the error happened. For front-end based logging, you will get a lot more information about events and recordings of what exactly went wrong. So do check out Posthoc, the link is in the description. And now back to the video. So the way Elixir makes it possible to do what you have just seen over here. Imagine this thing is going on inside Elixir now and you get a password over here. And when you call this ZXCVBN, what's happening is that this part of the request itself, when the request comes in, you can create a new process, a lightweight process inside the Beam virtual machine, right? So this is, again, it's not an actual process on your computer. It's not even a thread. It's a very lightweight process isolated inside Beam's virtual machine itself. And this process itself has a bunch of limitations in place. First of all is the amount of memory that this gets. Second of all is the amount of CPU time it can eat, right? And if you're able to constrain this on a process basis, what Beam then allows you to do is it allows you to preemptively schedule these processes on the CPU core itself, right? So fundamentally what's happening, understand that if you have a CPU here, CPU core over here, let's say if you have a single core machine for now, right? This single core machine, the reason you are able to use multiple applications together is because your operating system constantly gives this core to different applications. It schedules the amount of time an application could use a CPU core. That's why, and that's how you get a multitasking experience. Even if you have, let's say, 2 cores, the reason you can have 10 different applications opened and fully working and not just 2 applications is because your operating system is doing that preemptive scheduling over and over again to give fair amount of time to every application so that you can run multiple applications, more applications than the number of cores you have. Imagine Beam basically doing the same thing, but on a process level, and a process itself can be created on an API call level, right? Which makes a lot of sense. Whenever there's an API request coming in, think of it as you're creating a new process inside this Beam virtual machine that is able to preemptively schedule these bunch of other processes which are also running, right? Let's say that you are doing a request where at any given time you have at least 20 of such processes running and executing, right? As they're running, they will obviously complete and they'll go away and then new requests will come in. But at any given time, let's say 20 of these are running. So what Beam will do is that it will preemptively keep on scheduling, first of all, this process. Let's say if this got completed, then fine, great. If it does not complete, Beam would actually remove this from the CPU itself. It will halt the execution. It will not obviously like delete it or something. And it will move to the next process. It will give this time to run. Then it will do this. Then it will route this and so on and so forth, right? So what's happening here is that even if you end up with this situation over here, this thing is stuck in one of the processes, right? So all we have is a process that's not really going away. It's not getting completed, right? But Beam is able to preemptively switch to this, then this, then this, then this, and any new person or any new process that's coming up, right? It does not know that this is like a faulty process, obviously. Nobody can know that except you, but it is not blocking your system. Node.js, on the other hand, will just get stuck here, right? Beam, on the other hand, is preemptively changing this. And this is a responsibility of V8, right? Technically speaking, if V8 has this simple implementation of, preemptive scheduling on a CPU core, it can be solved in Node.js, JavaScript as well. You just need a new set of API. But I just feel that this is so much relevant. It is so much relevant for a web scale application, right? Because I've seen it firsthand that this is such a risky way to build an application where you have to be extremely careful, where an application like Node.js does not by mistakenly blocks the main event loop. And this approach works so beautifully is because these processes are extremely lightweight. It's not like a thread or an actual OS level process. So you can technically create this process on every single API request, even if you are doing something like, 10K or 50K request per second. Even at this scale, it's actually completely fine to do this. How about that? There is a blog post from 2015. 11 years ago, the road to 2 million WebSocket connections in Phoenix. I mean, how far are we in terms of knowledge and stuff? When I say we, I speak like, web developers and people who are just stuck with Node.js and, Python and defending these sort of technologies and speeds and all, where this is clearly a better model. This might not be the fastest one, obviously, because of the scheduling. You are incurring a overhead, but this is the safest way to build a backend at scale. I feel this is the best way to build backend at scale, because this was the exact kind of solution I was looking for, or I was thinking about when I figured out that this is what took our production backend down. And doing 2 million WebSocket connections in Phoenix is completely fine because, as long as you have a beefy instance, these 50K or this 1 million WebSocket connections are effectively all processes. Right? That's the beauty of it. So there is no mischievous single WebSocket that is actually blocking your operating system or your CPU core rather, and it's taking down the application with itself, right? The virtual machine itself is preemptively switching between all the processes and it's giving them fair amount of time to execute. Of course, there's a lot to discuss if we go into internals of Elixir Beam, like how does this scheduling works? What can you do if something like this happens? How do you debug that? And of course, I have not even got into the syntax of the language. But generally speaking, this is more of an architectural video, how this is so much better than Node.js for high volume web scale thing. Now again, this is very contextual video. Obviously you can't take this and apply this that you would not use Node.js for anything. For anything which is like, you developing your own personal applications or something which is very lightweight, obviously this does not make a lot of sense that you jump on Beam and Elixir. What I'm talking about is more from a mature company or a startup point of view, where, you are doing a lot of traffic, a lot of work, and you don't want unexpected surprises 3 a.m. in the night that something has gone wrong and you don't know like how to debug it. Because if this scenario happens in Beam, you would have probably a degraded experience for a few hours, right? This process is just eating a little bit more time every single time in the preemptive scheduling, right? So even if you have, let's say 20 of these going on, right? You are just wasting a little bit more time, and the attacker itself does not know that this is happening on the front end, right? They do not really know that they are actually able to cause this damage. But if you do this thing with the Node.js part, you are effectively bricking your server. This is where the beauty of this comes into picture. So yeah, that's all for this one. If you want to see a little bit more Elixir content or, these performance optimizations things, do let me know in the comments below, and make sure you like and subscribe the video. That's all for this one, and I'll see you in the next video very soon. If you're still watching, make sure you leave a comment "I watched till the end" below to tell me that you were still here, and let me know what do you think about the video.